Have you ever met a very intelligent person who had no clue as to how smart they were? Story 1. Criminal defense lawyer here. Had a client who was a low-level drug dealer and gun runner. Most street-level guys have a very different type of intelligence that doesn't translate well to the white-collar world. Many of my clients asked to read case law. I've only met one who could read it, digest it, and discuss it intelligently with me. This guy, he'd do his own research from the jail, which isn't uncommon, but this guy did it well and would actually send me relevant cases that were helpful to the issues in his case. And when I explained to him why some were not helpful, he got it. Ask good questions and use that discussion to inform future research. There are a lot of inmates who consider themselves jailhouse lawyers. This guy was smart enough to actually be one. I think about him a lot and wonder what his life would have been like if he was fortunate enough to be afforded with the same opportunities during childhood that I enjoyed. This guy, he'd do his own research from the jail, which isn't uncommon, but this guy did it well. This story is quite sad to read. I hope he can meet his potential someday. If you want to read a happier version of this story, take a look at Professor Sean Hopwood at Georgetown Law. The guy from prison and with zero formal legal training penned 2 petitions for certiorari that were granted by the U.S. Supreme Court. Just one cert petition being granted is a huge career-making accomplishment for any actual trained attorney. So to have a guy who taught himself the law in a prison law library do it twice is absolutely bonkers. He has since been released, graduated from law school, and is now a professor at Georgetown. I think about him a lot and wonder what his life would have been like if he was fortunate enough to be afforded with the same opportunities during childhood that I enjoyed. I've got a PhD and work in a field where so many people have PhDs that they don't even mention them. To this day, I suspect that the smartest person I've ever met was a kid I taught at GED Learning Center in the middle of a pretty rough area of a big city. I've met plenty of people who were exceptionally smart in 1 or maybe 2 dimensions, but this guy was across the board. He'd turn it on now and then, like when we were playing chess, and one time when he made a reference to something in French of all things, and then he'd just kind of smile, like it was enough to just briefly show the rest of us how smart he was. It was almost like he was a self-aware Will Hunting. Not that cartoonishly smart, of course, but very, very smart, aware of it, and aware of his station in life. I have absolutely no doubt that if he'd had my advantages since birth, he'd be a rock star in whatever field he was in. But instead, I'd see him hanging around a corner store, and he may have been a low-level dealer. I have no idea what's become of him, but I hope it's for the best. I taught algebra to inmates briefly, and the number of guys who told me they were too stupid to learn math while being able to convert odd measurements between metric and imperial in their heads on the fly was too damn high. I'd like to go back in time and kick all those elementary school teachers who told them they were stupid. Actually, I've run into plenty of racist, classist elementary school teachers currently teaching, but still haven't kicked them, even though they deserve it. Story 2. When I was in uni, I took part in a project called Inside Out, where we would go into prison and have criminology lessons with the inmates, whom we called inside students. We didn't teach them or observe them, we were all learning together. And this one guy was just a genius. He had this way of describing a phenomenon he'd noticed and thought about without realizing that it was an actual theory that existed. Like we'd studied them in class, so we knew about them. But he would just come up with it from personal experience. From labeling theory to functionalism, he would just outline them like he'd thought of them in the shower. It was extraordinary. He was also a bit unstable and prone to bursts of anger, often towards himself. He seemed to become frustrated very easily if he couldn't explain or understand something perfectly. And one day, he stopped showing up. I ended up talking to the guards who told me that he felt like he was too stupid for the class. Seriously, he was convinced that we were all smarter than he was and that he wouldn't be able to keep up. I don't know if they ever did, but we asked the guards and a few inside students if they could tell him that we'd loved studying with him, that he was starting really interesting discussions and that his observations always made us think more deeply, that his presence made the class better. And just to be clear, I don't mean to say that he was smart for someone in prison. He was a genius. Everyone but him knew that he was by far the most intelligent person in the room, but he didn't see it. I feel like people should be more aware that it's normal to struggle and feel stupid while learning new concepts. Then they'd be less discouraged and less likely to give up. This can be the curse of being highly intelligent. Never having to put much time or effort into learning something is great until a subject comes along that requires it. Then all those people who learn how to work hard to understand something keep going, and the highly intelligent person has a challenge she has never seen before, and either has to totally change her study habits, life habits in her late teens or 20s, or determine that she isn't smart enough. Either way, there will be a crisis of confidence, and lessons that should have come early come really, really late. There are a lot of psychopaths in prison who are genius IQ, etc., but who are murderers. Being really intelligent is not the greatest achievement in life, but useful to one who has it. Story 3. My mother. She was raised in a poor, abusive family and left school very early to escape. Even now, she'll say how she is uneducated, which is true. But she ain't stupid. She raised a bunch of us without much money and was always resourceful and canny at making ends meet. She can do fairly complicated math in her head, does extensive research before making large purchases, forwards me screenshots of quite sophisticated scam emails and tells me why they're fake. She's 78 now and has always embraced new tech, has no trouble using her smartphone or her PC. She even troubleshoots for her neighbors. She still lives in the same poverty-stricken area we grew up in and is often helping her neighbors advocate for themselves, writing letters, telling them who to contact and what to say. I wonder what she could have done if she had the opportunities she made damn sure we had. Your description is very like my grandma. She passed away 2 years ago at 81. 8th grade education, which was normal at the time for the area because her parents were farmers. At one point, she worked a sewing job where they were paid by the piece, and Grandma worked so fast that they changed the rule and started paying by the hour because she was earning too much money. She ran their dairy farm, plus corn and soybean fields, cattle, pigs, chickens, etc., and all the equipment, often paying additional hired help. Grandpa didn't really know how to manage the books, so Grandma did it all. After they retired, she had a smartphone before I did. She also had a huge 90s desktop computer and printer. One time, probably about 5 years or so ago, we were playing cards and she pulled out these nice professional-looking scoring sheets I thought she must have purchased somewhere. Nope, turns out she made them and figured out how to scan copies. I didn't even know she had a scanner. When I told her I was surprised, she was annoyed at me and was like, "Hey, I know how to do stuff. I did this and this and this for the neighbors and for this, that, and the other thing," ranting about her computer savvy. I had no idea, and I was like, "Grandma, do you know I'm pretty sure my mom couldn't do some of the stuff you're talking about?" She also had plenty of stories about identifying and thwarting scammers, especially the door-to-door kind. She liked to smile and waste their time, and then when she refused to buy in to whatever they were selling and they got angry, she would play dumb and offended and laugh about it later. She was also progressive in very heavily conservative areas. Man, I miss her. Story 4. My dad. He's dyslexic and growing up in the education system in the 70s didn't provide any support, so he's all but illiterate. He left school at 15 with no qualifications. He always says he's stupid, and it upsets me so much. He won't believe it when we tell him he's not. Me, my mom, and my sister all have education beyond degree level, and he's smarter than any of us. He's eloquent, but sometimes mispronounces new words that he's heard in a different accent. Our accent is heavy on the R sound, so I've noticed him adding it to words that don't have R's. But of course, he's never seen it written down to know. He watches historical documentaries and tells us about how that links with the one he watched a couple of years prior. He once drove me to the university 3 hours away using the route he'd driven in reverse once, without checking a map. I wish he could see himself as intelligent. ETA. Since it seems like a lot of people have a connection with this comment and will enjoy this story. He did actually do a speech for my wedding. I was worried about asking him because I wasn't sure how he'd manage and didn't want to put pressure on him, but he was keen to do it. My mom made cue cards with picture hints and they did not help him. He just had it written out and learnt it off by heart and used cue cards with the full speech to help him. He can read it when he knows what it says. And his speech was by far the most confident and well-performed speech out of all of us. Give him a birthday card with more words than happy birthday, and he's not happy. But he can smash out full-on speech with no hesitation. When you're intelligent, you can truly comprehend how stupid you are. There's a theory about this, right? There are people in various cultures around the world who can't read or write. Their intelligence capacity does not depend on these particular skills because they don't need it to survive where they live. Simple. Click on one of the videos on the screen now, or Karen will sue you.